can a company as large as Victoria's Secret that has such a problematic past have the opportunity to rebrand and make a comeback?
I think that they have made great steps to create a brand that stands for something different to what it used to stand for. I just don't think that we can completely negate the history of a brand. Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Life Uncut. I'm Laura.
I'm Brittany. Happy Tuesday. How was your weekend, Laura?
I have a really sore hand. I woke up with it for no reason. And it's another one of those moments where you're like, oh.
You woke up with your hand for no reason?
No, like an unusual ache, like a pain. And I was like, I'm getting old. Maybe I have arthritis now.
I have that unusual ache in my heart.
Oh my God.
I wish I was joking. It hurts. But continue. Tell me about your arthritis.
No,
How old are we?
Let's talk about your aching heart.
My heart aches.
You okay?
Oh, that sounds like
That's
a
heartburn.
Yeah, it's indigestion.
It's also just because we're getting old.
Did have a lot of nachos last night. No, what's this arthritis?
Nothing, like literally nothing. But I woke up and I can't, for some reason, this part of my hand hurts and I can't lift things. I have like half the amount of power in my hand that I normally have.
Because you do have powerful hands usually.
I only have half the power. Whatever.
You know what it could be? I had that once and now the name's just gone out of my head. Where you have like the little bubble in the joint in your hand. Ganglion. It's a ganglion. And the old school way to get rid of it was to slam a Bible onto your wrist.
You have, oh my God, Keisha, can we do it live? Give me a hard book.
We've got We Love Love behind us.
No, it needs to be a hardcover. I have seen people do this on Instagram. I don't know where I am in the algorithm of Instagram, but I have
ganglions.
I have been fed quite a few of these videos where people have that bump on their hand and then a doctor or someone, I think it's not a doctor, but someone comes along and smacks it with a book and it pops the ganglion.
Again, I just always have to laugh at how different our Instagram feeds are. You're hitting arthritis and ganglions. It is true. So I had one, and because we used to do it in the hospital, right? Like it's actually a thing. People slam it with something hard, but mine popped. I saw mine pop live. I was getting an ultrasound on it, and the pressure from the ultrasound probe popped it, and I saw it disperse.
Ew.
So maybe you have a ganglion.
Maybe not though. Maybe I've just did something from picking up Lola. Lola is like 20-something kilos and she thinks she's a newborn. Like if she could still be breastfed and suckling inside my shirt, she would.
Wow, Ben thinks he's a newborn still too. It's starting to make a lot of sense.
Like I have a sore hand from carrying him as well.
I have a sore hand too.
Nursing Ben like a baby. Oh dear.
No, he just likes to suckle.
Ew.
Yeah, so you have to. Well, that's probably why you're sore. You carry around 20 kilos all day.
The word suckle and the visual image of a full-grown man, it doesn't do it for me.
It's not sexy, is it?
It's not.
Hey, you want to suckle?
All right, moving right along.
So how was your actual weekend?
No, my weekend was good. We had this sounds so ridiculous because I feel like every weekend we've had like a mini getaway.
You do. You have had a lot lately.
We've had a lot of little getaways. We had our last mini getaway before what is like the hellfire of November and December for Tony May. So like October is chill. October is manageable. As soon as we get into November, when everyone else is kind of like looking towards the end of the year and thinking that things are calming down, it is probably it's not even probably, it is our busiest time of the year for Tony May. So no more holidays, no more fun. It was our last little mini weekend away. We went away with some really good friends and their kids. And if you are an OG lifer, you're going to laugh at this. Do you guys remember how I was talking about the friends that I made at the park and how I made Matt stalk them on LinkedIn? We're such good friends now that we do weekends away together, okay? So we really got in there.
Do you want to know why this is funny? It's because they're my friends now too.
How do you know them?
So I know your whole weekend before you told me.
Oh, because you go to the same gym.
We have saunas. We were in the sauna together yesterday. We're all talking about your weekend. He's like, I'm sure Laura will fill you in. He's like, our kids just get along so well. I'm like, I know. He's like, we were park friends. I was like, I know. I was like, I know everyone's stories.
You're like, I know everything. Okay, if you're not across it, basically we just met this family in the park this one day and we thought they had kids the same age as our kids and we all hit it off. And then I said to Matt, like, it's so hard to make adult friends. When you have children and you kind of, unless you make friends in the workplace, it's really hard to make new friends with people who you think are similar to you and you vibe with.
Are your people.
Yeah. And I was like, Matt, when we just met in the park and we're never going to see these people again. And that'll be such a shame. And Matt was like, well, actually, I do know where he works because he works for a company. He's like, could be useful for Tony May, but also why don't I just try and find them on LinkedIn? And we did that. And it's so weird to say that out loud because it makes us sound like such absolute creeps, but I'm okay with it.
So hearing his version yesterday in the sauna was so funny because just funny because he thinks I'm hearing a story for the first time, but I already know like the other party's version, your version. But the way he was saying it was like, you guys, it was like, when you want to track someone down for a date, he was saying it was like romantic. He's like,
it was. No, we have the same version. It's
he was
true.
like, but he wasn't trying to be funny.
I was like, leave your keys in the bowl and let's just see what happens.
Yes. He was like, so we met through some friends at the park and then like we're like, why not start a WhatsApp group and very sporadically be like, hey guys, is anyone going to the park today at 4? And then we're like, I'll be there. And then it was all this nervousness meeting. And then he's like, and then the time came where we thought, should we escalate this? And Matt was like, should we take this to the next level? Should we go away for a weekend? And the way he was saying it was like this awkward shyness when you ask someone out on like you're taking the next step in a romantic relationship.
It's because making new friends is hard, guys. And
I
sometimes
know, I have none.
You gotta put yourself out there. You can come on our family dates next time. Bring Delilah.
I walk into the sauna and I just put my keys in the bowl. I'm like, any takers?
I'll take whatever.
I'm trying to make some friends.
Actually, look, something happened on the weekend that I would love your thoughts on because a conversation that I have with Matt quite often is around like resilience building in kids. And like if you don't have kids, you might not find this very interesting, but hear me out because I think most parents are just winging it and we're trying to do the best job that we possibly can.
Of course.
We've read a few books, if you're lucky. We've listened to a few podcast episodes and no one knows what they're doing. Not even the people who say that they know what they're doing and try and give the advice. We constantly have this conversation around how do you build resilience in children when their lives are seemingly pretty good, And I say this because growing up, my childhood wasn't great. And I know that I got resilience in the bucket loads. Like resilience came at me, having a stepdad that's, wildly problematic really, really serves some resilience building. Now, I'm not saying that I think kids need to go through really horrible hardships in order to like grow up and have gratitude.
And have character.
Like
Sorry, you have no trauma.
Believe it or not, I would rather not have had a heroin addict stepdad. But look, the character building was good. And now I'm funny off the back of it.
You are only who you are because of him. So have you thanked him lately? Too far. Too far. Your kids are going nowhere. They got a roof over their head and no drugs.
Like literally.
Yeah.
You don't know how good you've got it.
They're not even going to uni.
I'm going to become an addict and then you deal with this. Fuck. We can't joke. We shouldn't joke. Anyway. Okay, so my kids, they're very, very lucky, right? They go away on nice weekends away. They have beautiful friends. Like, they get a lot of things. And I'm not saying we don't buy them things as in like they're not getting loads of presents and stuff like that, but they want for nothing, right?
I've never been away with you where you haven't brought them a present back from the airport every time.
That's different. That's when I go away without them because I'm buying them back with my guilt.
Guilt
yeah,
love.
It's guilt love. So that's different. That's working mum guilt love. So, okay, on the weekend, we were at the pool and Marley had made friends with these little girls and everything was going swimmingly, funny or not. Mind the pun.
We got that.
And then a little while after they had been playing together, which what seemed really nicely, the older girl, who was probably about 5 or 6 years older than Marley, had said to her friends who she was there with, and she didn't know that we could hear her. She obviously didn't know that we were Marley's parents. She said to her friends, oh my God, does anyone like this girl? Let's lose her and swim away from her. So then they were playing a game between them where they were trying to run away from Marley. Now, Marley's only 5 years old, so she didn't understand that this is what was happening. And I was trying to say to her, like, Marley, come and play with your friends. Like, come over here.
Yeah.
Maybe, like, let's give them some time to themselves. And Marley really was like, no, Mummy, they're my friends. I want to play with them. So it was this moment where I was like, I know you're going to get your little heart crushed because I know you're going to realize that you're not wanted. Do I intervene? Do I let this run its course? Like, is this a learning moment for a child to realize like what a social pecking order is? Or do I intercept this?
My advice would have been do exactly what you did. Like you try and step in without telling her and say, like, let's give them some space. Let's play over here without saying they don't want you.
Keisha's in the corner like, I will drop kick that kid.
No.
I want names and addresses right now. Who the fuck are they?
I think it's
Marley.
I think it's super normal. It's a part of growing up, unfortunately. And I think that for both of those parties, you said that they're both only 5 or 6. it's a steep learning curve for Marley to know that not everyone is always going to like you or want to play with you. And for the other girl as well, she's also learning on how to treat people. And I'm not saying that that is right, but these are like formative years that you are learning. Maybe you haven't had that situation with your parents where they've told you not to be mean to people, and from what you're saying, it doesn't sound like they were being mean to her face. It sounded like they had made the decision that they didn't want to be in that situation, and they were like to the other girls, let's just get out of it.
Yeah, it's way better to be mean behind people's backs.
100%. You don't get caught. No, but I think equally for both of them, this is a part of growing up, and I think we do. I'm not a parent, but I have a lot of nieces and nephews and a lot of friends with kids. I also, spoiler, I was a child once. I think we bubble wrap our kids too much these days, and we want to protect them. And I understand that. Of course, you don't want your kids to go through things. You don't want to see them sad, have fallen over, hurt physically or, metaphorically like me with my broken heart.
And your titty suckling.
That doesn't hurt.
Does it make it better?
But I just think it's a part of it. And I think sometimes you have to, as a parent, step back and let your child work it out. If you do everything for them all the time, they're not going to be able to do anything for themselves when they're older.
Yeah, it was a good lesson because we had that moment where we were like protective parents and wanted to get involved. And then both Matt and I had, a little bit of a chat and we were like, you know what, this is for Marley to work out. Because as parents, we can't constantly be fixing her problems. She needs to learn to fix these problems herself, or she needs to figure out and understand the social cues of when someone does or doesn't want to play with her. And funnily enough, like she is a tenacious little kid and she's very social. So by the end of the holiday, she had won them over. They were like coming up to play with her. So I was like, go you.
They were just worn down. They're like, we can't swim anymore. Our arms don't have it in us.
But I don't know. It's really hard when you kind of like see your kid being left out of something to have the reservation to let them learn those lessons themselves. It's really hard to have the self-control because you want to fix the problem. We didn't do it in this instance, but also it really reminded me of that episode of Bluey where Bingo gets left out from the cousins and they're running away from it. It's fucking mean. Kids are mean.
That's why Bluey has made that episode, because that
happens.
That happens.
Yeah.
That's a reality. And it's also like, you're not always going to win. So I don't believe in all these participation awards. Like, people do come first, second and third, and people are not going to be good at stuff. You're not going to be the first person picked for a sporting team. You're not always going to get the job that you go for. Like, we need to be let down. We need to feel what that feels like. And what you made a really good point, Laura, but she needs to learn those social cues. So a child, maybe she needs to learn that they didn't want to play with her in that time so that she can reflect on those actions throughout the day. And she's like, oh, that's what that was. Because you take that into your future.
Not even like reflecting. It's not as though she's done something wrong. It's
just learning.
Yeah. And I think my big lesson from this, and it's probably the first real time where I've had to put it in action, is this understanding that as a parent, I can't fix all her problems and I shouldn't want to fix her problems because that's where resilience building is going to come from, right? Her learning the skills to go, okay, how do I deal with this situation? And what's my social awareness around this? So I don't know, maybe we managed it in an okay way, but yeah, it broke my little heart to see her being left out of something and not being able to do anything and having to just stand by and watch it unfold.
Yeah, and she won them over in the end.
Good on her.
She got there.
Yeah. That's what you do, wear them down.
Yeah, you never take no for an answer.
Consent.
Yeah, consistency is key. Well, our weekends were markedly different. Let me say that.
I know you were in a sauna for so that sounds
weekend.
nice. That sounds beautiful. Actually, I did see you posting on Instagram and I'm pretty certain you spent the entire weekend in a sauna.
I have been in a sauna every day. Yeah, I'm really hard into my sauna era because it's just across the road from me. So I do live in there. It's supposed to make me live longer. That's what I've read.
Great.
Chris Hemsworth said it in Limitless, the documentary series that he did. But
Did you watch all that?
Yeah. Very slow start. If anyone has watched it, I think they did the episodes the wrong way. I got really into it in the last couple, like the end. But the start of it, I was like, boring. Like, just jump off the cliff already.
The very first episode, he was like jumping off a building.
No, he's jumping off a building, Keisha.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Sorry. For anyone that doesn't know, I was like,
About longevity.
I was like, boring, jump off. He had his first sort of thing was he had to be brave enough to jump off, to walk over a ledge on a building. And it was a whole thing about heights. But yeah, I liked the lessons that I got from watching that, but it was very slow. No, I went out, the funniest thing happened, but I need you guys to come along this journey and imagine it with me because this is very descriptive. But I went out to dinner with Mitch, our radio host, and his boyfriend, Stephen. We went to our local outdoor restaurant.
Toddies. Everyone in Australia knows what Toddies.
No, not everyone in Australia knows. It's a restaurant where we live in Bondi, but it has like this huge, lush, high-end outdoor courtyard. It's like very fancy and open and like it's nice. It's got a romantic feel.
Yeah, but it's a restaurant in a pub. Like it sounds super fancy, but it's just like it's a nice restaurant. They kind of try to make it feel like a little Italy, the outdoor courtyard.
Yeah. It's just the ambience is beautiful outside.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're outside and I need you to understand what the chairs are. So the chairs are like almost, if you think of those old chairs that you take to a barbecue or something, or maybe even camping, but a bit fancier, the ones that fold out, they're wooden. They have like that calico back. Canvas back.
Lovely.
So, you know, the canvas back that slides over the posts.
Very Europe picnic vibes.
But can you picture that? The canvas back, okay, slides down over the back. So Mitch's boyfriend, Stephen, we're sitting there with wines. It's all fancy. Mitch's boyfriend, Stephen, I don't even know how you can do this. He had his jacket, his coat, over the back of his chair. Standard. The night goes on. It gets a bit colder. He decides to put his jacket on. So he pulls back, lifts his jacket up, puts his jacket on, and then goes to lean back in the chair.
We all know where you're going with this.
There's no back. He falls through the whole chair onto the ground in front of the whole courtyard.
With a glass of red wine.
Because the canvas from the back of the chair got stuck in the jacket. He pulled the jacket up. The canvas was in it. He didn't know. He put the canvas backing of the chair around his body, like wrapped like a hug, and then just leant back with so much confidence. I have never laughed so hard in my life. Like one of those moments where you can't even be embarrassed because you're like, and then he couldn't understand. He was like, I don't understand where it's gone. It's like the waitress.
Like someone did this to me.
Yes.
I've been set up.
It's like a prank. And he's like, we couldn't work it out for so long until we're like, hang on a minute. I looked in his jacket and the whole canvas thing was wrapped in his jacket. Like you couldn't script this shit. But literally that's about as exciting as my weekend got.
Wow.
I know.
You guys might have seen that last week was the return of the Victoria's Secret runway show. We've spoken about Victoria's Secrets over the last couple of years. Back in 2021 and 2022, we've done 2 episodes around the rebrand, around the very questionable ethics and culture behind the brand itself. And since 2019, the iconic Victoria's Secret Angels show had been rested because of so much controversy, failing ratings, and also because of how much the brand had dipped in sales and profits because of the controversy that it had received. Now, it has made a comeback and it has really tried to embody this idea of body inclusivity and diversity, a new brand strategy that they have been heralding since 2020. But the question that we have, and there's so many parts of this to unpack, is whether or not that is an authentic brand change and whether or not it's possible for a brand that was so entrenched in diet culture and in like heroing one type of beauty standards for so long, whether or not they're able to make this complete backflip.
Well, back in May, Victoria's Secret had promised that the show would reflect who they are today, plus everything you know and love. So the glamour, the runway, the wings, the musical entertainment, and so much more. Like they put on, if you guys have seen the shows, there always is really huge, over-the-top productions. What we did see were models of all ages, new models that have never hit the Victoria's Secret runway before. We saw Kate Moss make her debut. You know, Kate Moss is in her 50s. Tyra Banks was there. She closed the show. Tyra Banks was an original Victoria's Secret's model. Now she is also in her 50s. And she is probably now included as quote unquote body diverse because she's a little bit older. She talks about how she's put on weight and she's in a different phase of her life. What we did see though was a very, very pared back version of a Victoria's Secret's runway show. The platform and the runway was on the same level as everyone was seated. There were no big song and dance. All the seating for the guests were on the same level. They were very basic chairs. It was far less over the top. And the purpose of that was supposed to be so that we are looking at the models and what they are wearing, the product, as opposed to it being this show that is purely
like
for
an extravaganza.
Yeah, it's supposed to be so it's not this show that's just for entertainment. I think personally they did that part of it very well.
It's interesting because I don't care so much about the structure of the show. Like I don't care about the bells and whistles or how the show was put together. What I am so fascinated by is whether or not a brand can completely change the identity. Like like the DNA of the brand, whether they can kind of come back from the controversy that they faced. If you guys aren't across it all, so I think it is important to kind of lay down the backstory of this, because it goes beyond just being like a brand that's not size inclusive and obviously contributed to so much of the diet culture. There was a lot of really insidious reports that came out of Victoria's Secret. So back in 2019, that was a time when many conversations around Jeffrey Epstein were in media. But to give you the backstory, so Les Wexner, he was the billionaire founder, and Ed Razek, he was the right-hand man of Victoria's Secret. Now, there were so many reports that came out of sexual assault, of sexual abuse. There were reports that came out around the culture of Victoria's Secret. And for any of the models who had came forward, so the angels who had come forward and reported this type of conduct, they had been punished by no longer getting placed within the show. So it was almost a situation where if you came out and you spoke about the treatment that you'd received from within the company,
You'd be punished.
You'd be punished for it. So your career or justice. So Les Wexner, he founded L Brands, which is a global retail empire that includes Victoria's Secret, Bath & Body Works. He was also the CEO for more than 5 decades of the company. Wexner announced in 2020 that he was going to step down and sell his majority stake in Victoria's Secret for $525 million to a private equity firm. But he didn't sell all of it. So he still profits from Victoria's Secrets in some way. And the reason why he's linked to Jeffrey Epstein is because he was the financial manager and ex-confidant of Les Wexner. So it is like the murkiest, muddiest, most disgusting kind of backstory as to how Victoria's Secret came to be when you look at it with that lens. The thing that's different now, though, and to kind of bring it forward into 2024, is that there is a new CEO of Victoria's Secret, and her name is Hilary Super. She is the former CEO of Rihanna's popular brand, which is Savage. So it's a very, very body conscious and body inclusive brand. And they have placed her as a CEO as a real statement that they are trying to make massive changes as a brand itself.
I think it's amazing that they have appointed her as the head, because without doubt we can say that the problems came from those men that were in charge of Victoria's Secrets at the time. They have made a huge conscious effort to make it very female dominated, and I say that because everyone there was female, all the entertainment was female, like that was a conscious decision from them. But I think the question is now is, can a company as large as Victoria's Secrets that has such a problematic past have the opportunity to rebrand and make a comeback? That's the question that everyone's asking. And from what I have seen online, the discourse is kind of, it's a bit of A, bit of B. There's a bunch of people saying, yes, you've come back, you've nailed it, you've listened.
Oh, I don't know.
And then there's a bunch of people that'll say, we will never forgive and forget what you did, or the messaging that your brand put out to the world 6 years ago. To be honest, I've gone back and forward on my opinion on this, but I do think that I am the former. I think that we can give them the opportunity to make amends and make a change, apologize, say you've listened, and make the improvements that we as a consumer told them that we wanted to see. I don't think we can hold it against a company as a whole. If we know that there are 2, 3 really problematic people, we know the messaging wasn't great, but also the messaging was of its time.
Wasn't great.
No,
horrific.
Yes, but it was of its time. That's why it was that, and I hate saying that, but it's remiss not to make that point. It was of its time. That is why this show was so big. But then can we hold it against a brand when we have spoken and they have taken 6 years out, they have done what they think is their best to listen, and they have brought something back? I, in this sense, think that we can show a little bit of forgiveness and say, okay, look, I think they tried to listen.
I think it's interesting because I don't have as much grace for a brand as what I might do for an individual. So like a brand is a profiting company. And I guess my take on the Victoria's Secret is like I don't have as much grace as what you do, Britt. And I think about it in terms of all of these models that have come on board. Ashley Graham is one of them. And I was following what she was saying on social media because she was one of the real like body inclusive, largest sized women who fronted the catwalk show.
I think she calls herself a plus size model.
She does. I mean, which is like in and of itself, I'm like, some people are okay with using plus size model and some people don't like that terminology, but she does use it.
Yeah, it should just be model.
Model, exactly. But my question is for these women to front this brand, they would have had to have been paid an exorbitant exorbitant amount of money, right? Because no one in their right fucking mind is putting their name to the brand Victoria's Secret without being remunerated in a way and without also being shown that there is like tangible long-term change. And I understand that it may be Victoria's Secret's intention to have tangible long-term change. I'm not discrediting that they've got a brand new strategy, but I think their hand was forced to come up with that strategy. They are a publicly listed company where they have massive amounts of shareholders and so many people that are literally reliant on that company being profitable. Their profits were dismal. They had the greatest loss around 2019 when they were forced to make these changes. So I think they were put between a rock and a hard place. They had to change. They had to pivot because they were forced to do so. I don't think it came from this altruistic place of wanting to do it because it was the right thing to do. I think it was a performative thing. And now the blocks of the pieces of the puzzle have fallen into place.
But of course they were forced to change. That's what evolution is. We're all forced to change. Once we put something out to the world, whether it's an opinion, a thought process, a product, we listen to the feedback and we see, oh, okay, that's failing because of this, this, and this. That's what Victoria's Secrets did. To be honest, I don't think the reason matters as much as what they've done to fix it. But I have grace for people and companies who have made a mistake and then are actively trying to fix it after listening to feedback, because everybody is human. Everybody is going to make mistakes, but it's what they do as a company or an individual to try and rectify that problem. And I personally think whether you are across and for Victoria's Secrets in terms of the idea of that we have a show dedicated to women walking a runway in lingerie, like maybe you don't like that at all, maybe you do. For me,
I don't have a problem with women walking in lingerie. I think that's great.
I'm not saying you, I'm saying the listener, but anyone, whether you have, because there are a lot of people that think that we shouldn't even be doing this. At the end of the day, I think it's another product that we're modeling. So it doesn't bother me at all having a runway dedicated to lingerie and sleepwear and sexy things like that. I don't care about that. But do you think that we are too hard on people when they make their apologies or when they try to make their comeback? Because Victoria's Secrets, in my eyes, I looked at them and I'm like, okay, you've now toned the show back. You've taken all the glamour out. You don't have the fantasy bra anymore because no one actually buys it. You don't have the extravagant wings anymore because it was irrelevant. You've got products that people buy. You've put inclusivity in there in terms of diversity, transgender models. You have models in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. You have models of color. And there's still people complaining. There's just a part of me that thinks, okay, you guys have told them what your issues are. They've made changes, but it's still not enough. And I do think sometimes we get to a point where we're just out with our pitchforks and sometimes it will never be enough.
Yeah, I think a brand that has done that much damage, that has such a seedy past, where the ex-founder and CEO of 5 decades still profits from it, I don't think it's a brand that we should be putting our money towards when there are so many other brands that consumers can choose, when you can literally be buying your lingerie products from Rihanna. I think it is a very, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the change isn't tangible. I'm not saying that they're doing everything that they can possibly do now to be presented as a diverse brand. Their profit share's gone up by 18% this year alone. So it's definitely working for them. It was a smart and tactical move. Do I think it comes from an altruistic place and that they are a company that I want to forgive and put my money into? Absolutely not. And the reason for that is because I think that the damage that that brand did to diet culture is so long stemming. Look, I don't normally believe in cancel culture. I think that a lot of people can come back from it. Do I think that a brand that is directly involved with Jeffrey Epstein, that has had such a long-term impact on the way women feel about their bodies, should have the opportunity to rebrand? I don't really think that they should. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah, but I also agree with that. That's not the question. That's not what we're talking about. Of course, we don't think that somebody that was accused of sexual assault and bullying and harassment should be profiting. We didn't even know that until yesterday, until we researched this. People, the general public, don't know he's still attached, which is a problem in itself, right? We are all made to believe that he had left the building. It was taken over by a new bunch of people who really cared about giving back and making the right changes. To be clear, of course, people in that industry shouldn't still be profiting, and that upsets me greatly. I don't personally buy from Victoria's Secrets, but my question that I'm posing is not about that as much. It is about, can somebody from 6 years ago who was what we see as problematic and not putting out the great messaging, do we give them the grace to rebrand, or do we hold that against them for the rest of their life?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that there's a few interesting parts of this. And Ashley Graham, who is someone who I love following on Instagram, I think she is brilliant in the way she speaks and I love her messaging. She obviously spearheaded the catwalk show and she posted this, which I can only imagine when you are someone who stands for body inclusivity and then you've made the choice to represent a brand like Victoria's Secret, you know that it could come with backlash, right?
For sure.
So you need to be very clever and very careful with how you craft your PR exposure, response, announcement that you're joining a brand like this.
Especially when 6-7 years ago you were a voice saying that this is not okay.
Absolutely. So this is what she said. When Victoria's Secret first reached out, I'll be honest, I hesitated. Well, thank God for that. For years, the brand didn't feel like it was made for someone like me. Their vision of beauty seemed narrow, as if something they created was just for one type of body, and it wasn't mine. But after sitting down with the leadership at Victoria's Secret, I saw real change. They were excited to have me join the show and assured me this wasn't just a one-time thing. The curve models weren't just a symbol. Victoria's Secret genuinely want to be a part of the body diversity revolution. They shared their commitment to embracing body diversity in a lasting, meaningful way. So I said yes. I said yes to representing all of us, to show up for everybody that's ever felt unseen, and that's a journey I am proud to walk. Now, that is very powerful. That type of celebrity endorsement goes a really, really long way in changing your mentality around a brand and around what a brand stands for. And I guess I do come back to this idea that I think that they have made great steps. They have put the right women in leadership positions to create a brand that stands for something different to what it used to stand for. I just don't think that we can completely negate the history of a brand when there's so many other options and so many other people that you can put your money towards. I know that I, as a consumer, would prefer to choose a small business, a small company, a female-led startup where I know that the money is going towards something that always had the intention of doing good in the world rather than creating the situation and the conversation that Victoria's Secret did for so long.
Well, so as someone, Laura, that's followed Ashley Graham for so long, like you said, you've loved following her along for a while. How did you feel as someone that sort of knows her story, respects her, loves her, when she made that statement? What did you think? Were you like, bullshit, you're being paid a lot, or were you like, this is great?
No, I thought, wow, they must have paid you a lot of money.
Right.
I was like, wow, Victoria's Secret has huge pockets in order to make this rebrand work. That's what I thought. And the people that they have on board are some incredible talent who I think a lot of people have deep and great respect for. And the only reason why that talent, it's probably twofold. I'm not saying it's just money, but it is because of this new CEO, Hilary Super, who people obviously have trust for. That's why she's been put in the position of CEO, to create trust with the brand. But I would also say that there is a massive monetary part of this, which is part of this creating a rebrand.
Yeah, I also
They go hand in hand.
Yeah, but I think too, if you've dedicated your life, like let's use Ashley Graham, to being a body inclusive model whose messaging is to make everyone feel comfortable, you're fighting to be seen on the runway so that people like you feel seen. There's obviously going to be a really huge part of you that's like, okay, I know what their past is, but I have fought for this moment, so who am I then to say no? If a brand has come as big as Victoria's Secret saying we are making changes and we want you to be a part of this new chapter, it'd be pretty hard to say no when you're like, okay, I've fought for this for so long, then they come and offer it to me and I say no. I can understand why, money aside, no doubt she got paid a matzah, but money aside, I can understand why she's like, yeah, I do want to be known to have been one of the first body inclusive models to hit the runway for Victoria's Secrets. I get that. I get wanting to really put what you've worked so hard for so many years into play.
My only question to you, Britt, is like, now that you do know a bit more about the backstory, so now that you know...
Yes, I will walk the runway for the right money.
No. Now that you know that like a company that for so long buried sexual harassment reports, profited off the power imbalance between men and women within that company, now that you know that the man who spearheaded that for so long still profits from the brand, it's really hard to find clear information about how much of it he actually sold and how much he still owns.
Which would be intentional.
Exactly. But you can still see that there is a portion of it that he still lays claim to. I would say that the sentiment and his values are deeply, deeply entrenched and that he hasn't had this massive rebrand, hence why he walked away from it. Do you think that that's a company you want to continue to support when at the end of the day, the money from that still goes and ends up in the pockets of the person who created these values to begin with?
To be honest, this is an easy answer for me. No, I never have really supported Victoria's Secrets, not for anything other than I liked other products better. Like before all of this came out and all of these allegations, I wasn't a Victoria's Secret
I was
girl.
always confused as to why it was such a popular brand. I didn't get it.
It was a very overseas brand. It's a very US-based brand. And
Yeah.
like obviously there's a lot of other countries, but here in Australia it didn't hit as hard. Like Victoria's Secret's clothing stores and actual retail stores were few and far between. I remember there was one at the airport and that was it, you know. No, the answer is no. I don't want to give back to somebody that still profits from that. If he was no longer a part of it and this was a whole new rebrand that was women-owned, new people, then yeah, I don't have a problem with it because I truly do believe we're allowed to rectify our past mistakes. You know, if the past mistakes in this sense were not Victoria's Secrets directly, but the people that were managing it, we all wear lingerie, we all wear underwear. I do think it's okay, but I'm never going to give my money back to somebody that was involved in sexual harassment when he's still profiting. No. I think we talk a lot about the effects cheating has, obviously, on the romantic relationship you're in. But what we don't see a lot or talk a lot about is the flow-on effect that cheating has on other relationships, like your friendships. Now, you guys might remember it was only 1 month ago that Dave Grohl, who is the lead singer of the Foo Fighters,
Good guy.
great guy, great singer, great guy until
Nice guy of rock and roll. Wasn't that what he was coined?
he was like looked at as the most wholesome man in rock and roll because he'd been with his wife, Jordyn Blum, for like 21 years. So that is unheard of in the rock world. But he did come out in September with this quote, "I've recently become the father of a new baby daughter, born outside of my marriage. I plan to be a loving and supportive parent to her. I love my wife and my children and am doing everything I can to regain their trust and earn their forgiveness. We're grateful for your consideration towards all the children involved as we move forward together."
I mean, I know this happened a month ago, so we're not unpacking this announcement because
No.
that's not the hot new take. But imagine that being your, like, hey, I had an affair. I love all my children and I'm trying to regain my wife's trust. That's your affair announcement. That's what that is.
Fully. And everyone's like, oh my God, what an amazing man. Like he's really taking ownership and being honest. He's being honest because it was going to come out anyway.
The bar is very low.
But you're right. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about now is this idea of friendships and what happens after that. Should you break up with a friend when they're going through this situation if you don't believe in their relationship? If you think your friend is going back to a toxic partner, can you stand by them and maintain that friendship? The reason we're having this discussion is a source close to Jordyn. Now, we don't know what a source is, but apparently someone close to the couple has come out saying she doesn't think she can continue to support her friend Jordyn throughout this process because she doesn't believe the relationship is healthy and she doesn't believe she should be going back and staying in that marriage. What is your responsibility as a friend? Are you entitled to dump the friendship if you don't like the person your partner's going back to?
I mean, there's so many layers to this. And I think in this story and in this specific example, so to just kind of give you a bit more backstory if you're not across it, I know that like most people would have heard of the news, but Jordyn was originally photographed without her wedding ring. She'd moved out of the family home and it seems like now a month later, when all of the drama has probably subsided a tiny bit, she's now been photographed wearing her wedding ring again and she's moved back into the family home. There is so many questions around this. Like, can you break up with your friend because they've gone back to their toxic relationship? I have a lot of feelings because firstly, my initial response is I think that is indicative of a pretty shitty friendship. Like if you are going to abandon your friend because they have chosen to stay with their cheating ex, to me, all that does is it creates a situation where you're driving them closer and you're driving them further back to their partner and to the person that they obviously still love and are trying to work things out with. And I think that is the danger of an ultimatum, right? If you give your friend an ultimatum because you hate their partner, the partner's not giving an ultimatum. The partner's not there saying you need to choose this relationship of your friends, or you'd hope that they're not doing that. But when you're the friend who's giving your bestie that ultimatum, you create an even bigger divide and you don't stop them from wanting to have their relationship. You just drive them closer to the person who you think is toxic in the first place.
This is what the source has said. Her besties have begged her to move forward with the split, not to go back with him at any cost. There are a lot of tears during this session. One of her friends, who's been a close confidant for many years, even told Jordyn that she will lose respect for her if she takes Dave back and she'll walk away from their decades-long friendship. The only thing that I can think of in this situation that is going to make a friend take such a drastic measure to say, if you go back, I'm done, it makes me feel like there is more to this story. It makes me feel like this has been a very, very ongoing private issue. Maybe it's not a standalone issue that is just cheating. Maybe there's more to their relationship that isn't healthy. Sometimes in a friendship, when you have one person that has been going through something for a very long time and they're really holding on to it and they're complaining a lot and they're trauma dumping on you a lot, but they're not doing anything in their life to change it, it can get very exhausting for the person that has to listen. They give the same advice all the time and they see their friend go back and do the same thing over and over and over again. That can be really challenging in a friendship. But I can't see how in this situation that has happened because it's been 4 or 5 weeks.
I mean, we never know though. Like this could have been the icing on the cake for the friendship. Like, I mean, who knows? Dave could have had, we do not know the Foo Fighters, might be surprising to you all, but Dave could have had multiple affairs. This could have been a feature of their relationship for a really long time. The only thing when I read this article, what really like made me feel something about it is this idea that I will lose respect for you if you went back to that relationship. I will lose respect for you as a person if you go and be with that person that is toxic and treating you badly. Surely, as if you love someone, if you care about them as we do with our friends, this idea of losing respect for them, like we know that that comes from a sense of low self-esteem. It comes from a sense of feeling as though they're not worthy or never going to have anything better. It could come from a sense of feeling like she's frightened to be alone. You don't know the reasons why she's staying there. It may not just be because she's like blindly in love and all forgiving. There's so many reasons why people stay after cheating, and there's so many reasons why people stay and try and repair their relationships with that person who is, you know, quote unquote toxic in a relationship. I just think it's okay to put boundaries around the things that you want to talk about with your friends. So if you do have a friend that comes and they're constantly trauma dumping their terrible relationship on you, and that becomes like a really frequent and common thing, and they're never ever taking the advice or they're never actioning anything, but they're always talking about it, put boundaries in place to say, look, I love you, but I cannot keep listening to you talk about the thing that makes you deeply unhappy over and over and know that you're not going to do anything about it. Doesn't mean you have to cut the person from your life or cut the friendship from your life, especially not when that person is going through potentially the hardest thing that they're ever going to experience. And that is the public shame and also the personal heartbreak that your partner's just had an affair and had a baby with someone else.
Also, the source says, and this is the part that like pisses me off a little bit. The source says, one day Jordyn Blum is ditching her wedding ring and vowing divorce from cheating husband Dave Grohl. The next, she's at home wearing the ring and sobbing because she doesn't want the marriage to end.
Standard.
What do you expect? That to me is a pretty standard response when you find out your long-term partner of 21 years has cheated. Your initial response is going to be upset, to have space, to take your ring off, to be like, I need to work out what this is. Sounds like she's worked out what she wants and now she's trying to make her marriage work. We have said so many times on this podcast that one of the things we have learned from a lot of the specialists we've spoken to is that cheating isn't black and white, and it is different for every person and every relationship. It also doesn't have to be the end of a marriage. It's very easy for us to all sit back and say, yeah, if my partner of 21 years cheated on me and had another child, I would be out that door. But
and there will be people who do behave like that. There will be people who have enough willpower, are strong enough in their sense of self, who would see that as a complete deal breaker. But we can't impose our thoughts and our feelings around a relationship on someone else when we're not experiencing it and they are.
Yeah, we've got no idea what their life for 21 years has been like. We have no idea what he's saying to her or what their intimate moments are. But I think the one thing we do know is probably now is the time she needs her friends to support her.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I would be so curious to kind of like throw this out to you guys, like all the lifers listening. Have you ever had a friendship be affected by your friend dating someone who was treating them in a toxic way or the relationship was toxic? Have you ever had a friend who kept going back to a relationship and that affected your friendship? I would say so many people have, and I think that it's something that unfortunately so many of us have to navigate. It may mean that it affects your friendship, but I think it's pretty rare to put a line in the sand and say, I won't be friends with you if you go back to that person who cheated on you. Because like I said, you're imposing your relationship standards on that person. And at the end of the day, it's their story, it's their relationship, and it's the choice. Like they need to get to that place themselves, that they make that decision for themselves, because nobody is ever going to make the decision to leave a relationship because somebody outside of that relationship gave them an ultimatum. It doesn't work like that.
And if anything, it's just going to drive her closer to the relationship.
Totally.
If you take away everything else that she needs, all her support systems and all her friends, there's nowhere really left to go, is there? So she's going to feel even more safe in the current relationship that she's in.
Something that I do think that is very interesting about this specific case, and we touched on it in the very beginning when we were talking about David being like the nice guy of rock and roll. I find it so interesting that overarchingly, the press that he has received has been, considering what's happened, it's been relatively positive. The overarching commentary that was being published at the time was, at least he did the right thing and acknowledged his illegitimate child, his child out of wedlock. I mean, it was almost like trying to frame him as though he's still a nice guy and still a good guy and he's trying to repair his relationships. But on the flip side to that, now the person that should feel shameful, or the person that should be super embarrassed, or the person whose behavior or decision-making is under scrutiny is the wife who did nothing wrong. Like, she has done nothing wrong in this instance. This is something that has happened to her. And now from the outset, we're all judging the decisions that she makes when she's just trying to navigate something that she has absolutely no fucking control over. And it's just ripped her family and her life apart. So I can understand why after 21 years, it's not as simple as just walking away, taking off your wedding ring and calling your husband, every name and explicit under the sun. I think that when you find out this type of information, you would be filled with utter rage. And then once the utter rage kind of starts to subside, you're filled with so much grief around the fact that your relationship is never going to be what it used to be. And I think that's the point where we see people trying to claw back to be with the person that, from the outset, everyone else is still like, why the hell would you want to be with that guy?
I'm not that shocked by that, Laura. We've seen historically over and over again that the media love issues with women, between friendships. And you're not going to ever see, I can guarantee you, the rest of the Foo Fighters going to Dave and saying, hey, we're going to break up with this friendship and this band is breaking up because we don't condone you cheating on your wife. We don't condone you fathering a child out of wedlock. We will always continue to see it with women in media.
Yeah, and I think it's really sad that in these instances that's what it comes back to, right? It comes back to how she is going to be framed and this idea of losing respect for her, but there's not been any conversations around losing respect for him.
It's time for Accidentally Unfiltered, and I have a very embarrassing one that I this is not mine, but one that I read and I cringed on the inside. I was once seeing this guy. We were laying in bed watching a movie on my laptop when my friend sent a text which popped up on the screen and said, has he learned to kiss yet, or is he still shit? We both saw it. I saw that he saw it. And I had to awkwardly attempt to cover it up by explaining to him that no, indeed, you actually were really good. I can confirm, though, the kissing never got better. Would you not die?
There is no way to dig up from that. There is no way, because the only other thing to say is it's not about you.
I would say
it's just as bad.
I'd say I'm seeing multiple people. I'd say, sorry, I got a confession.
I'm seeing someone else.
I'm cheating on you.
Like, I'm not about this, because I think if someone's a really bad kisser, you're never going to stay with them. No one's having a long-term relationship with someone who can't kiss.
Well, then it comes into question. Are you supposed to tell them?
Do you teach them?
Yes, I think that you do. But I don't think you have to teach them, but I think you teach them with your mouth.
I don't know.
Like, you don't say...
I don't know if you can. I have experienced very bad kissing, and I'm not sure if you can lead, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
No, you can. There's definitely particular types of kiss, because everyone likes something different, right? Like, he might kiss someone, this poor, terrible kisser, might kiss someone that thinks he's a great kisser. Maybe that's why he does what he does. Same as your ex used to fuck people's legs, Laura. Everyone likes different stuff. But I think what you can do is just say someone's a bit tonguey, a bit mouthy,
so
a bit
tonguey.
teethy. You show them what you want. So you don't open your mouth. You keep those pursed, closed lips. Little flicker when you need it.
You kiss him like a nana.
But I think that, for sure, sometimes there's only so much you can do. Like, there's only so much of that before someone's just not going to get it.
There is nothing. No, there's plenty of things, but it's pretty high up there.
Nothing worse.
There is nothing more of a turnoff than someone who is a bad kisser. Like, it's a real turn off.
Nah, there's heaps of shit.
Yeah, but the kissing is the first bit. right? Like if you've gotten to the point where you're about to kiss someone and then the kissing is so bad, like so bad, all of the excitement and the like, oh, I want to be, it goes out the window because you're like, yuck.
When you're John in the other room, guy in the room's like
He's
listening.
so
He's on the edge of
uncomfortable.
his seat. when you're kissing someone and you don't like it, and you are trying to like get them to read the room, so you're like trying to pull back, but they keep leaning forward.
Yuck.
It happened recently on Love Is Blind when I was watching it, and I was cringing watching it. I was like, read the room. She's like pulling him back and he kept leaning on and leaning on. All of a sudden he was laying on her. It was on TV. It was awkward. And I was like, she's evidently not trying to be sexy and like, I will leave you wanting more.
tease
She doesn't
you.
want more. I'm like,
I just want to really make it clear that we are not being paid by Love Is Blind.
no, we just love
This is
it.
the 4th episode, but yes, I know exactly. Leo's
know the
guy.
scene.
I know exactly what you're talking about. He kept putting his hand behind her head. It was so, like, it will make every hair on your body stand up because you're just like, I can see how much she does not want to be there.
I don't think anyone's going to be confused with us being paid by Love Is Blind. We've only shit on things that has happened. Like,
Yeah.
there's never been like, oh, you must watch it. We're like, this is awful, this is awful, this
No,
is
I
awful. It's
do
kind of
love
like our
it.
perspective of maths. Okay, I would dare say that every single person can viscerally recall at least one person that was a horrible kiss and it instantly turned them off. I can think of 2.
Who? Name them.
Maddie J.
Tennis guy. No, Maddie Jo's a great kisser.
He'd want to be. Practice with 29.
Tennis
women.
guy. Fuck off. Tennis guy and police officer. Terrible. Yuck.
Kisses.
But
Mine was only one of my second boyfriend. I think I was like 15. He didn't know how to kiss yet though. He was also 15.
bless him. He
His
would have
excuse.
learned.
Here's a question. Let's role reversal. You're in bed. You're watching a movie with this guy that you're dating. And on his screen, a message pops up that says, has she learned to kiss yet or is it still shit? What do you do?
I pretend like I haven't seen it and then I never call him again. I'm
Oh,
done.
no, I ask him for sure.
Like, I want nothing to do with that.
but you know what?
I'm too awkward.
I wouldn't be angry. I think I'd be like, why didn't you tell me? That's what I'd say. I'd be like, I was like, do you not? I would just put them on the spot because I was like, do you not like the way we make out? And I would hope that there'd be a constructive conversation where I'm like, well, please tell me because I would love you to know.
Good from you. You sound like someone who's been to therapy. I'd be like, oh, that's awkward.
I've been through a lot.
Let's avoid this conversation.
You'd be like, do you want to have sex?
I'd be like,
No,
oh,
can't.
guess we'll do it pretty woman style then. All right. What is your suck and your sweet for the week? Your suck of the week.
Is that my tire has a nail in it, my car tire, and I now have a slow leak that I have to fill up. I filled it up yesterday thinking I just had a low tire. Then I came to work this morning and it was like an immediate drop, which means there is a nail in that bad boy.
Britt was 15 minutes late because she had to go and do a little, was it called PSI? Psst. PSI?
Yeah, that's the pressure.
That is a suck. And also, I don't want to be you this afternoon walking back to your car because you're going to have a flat tire. Do you know how to change a tire?
Yeah, I do.
Good. Proud of you.
But I don't think it'd be flat. I think it's super slow leak. So I'll just fill it back up again on the way home. And then I've got it booked in at the end of the week, but I've got to continue to fill it up every day. Until
That's
it's booked
very
in.
dangerous because it could just explode out and your tire could blow up.
Well, if I die now, that's
Sorry.
on you.
We love you.
My sweet is probably I just had a really nice dinner with our very good friend, co-host Mitch Churi and his boyfriend Stephen. So it's nice. I've met his partner Stephen quite a few times, but I feel like we're at that point now where we're really getting to know each other because I think it's important to know your friends' people, you know? Like this
It's
is
nice.
your friend's partner.
Well, I have not met him yet.
No, I know you haven't because you're always away yourself every single weekend. So that was my sweet. It was just a really nice dinner. I had a few vinos, so I haven't been drinking much lately. So I just had a great weekend.
I love that. I also saw that you guys were out together and I felt very sad. Even though I was away, I was like, I want to be there.
You were literally away with a group of friends.
I was away. My sweet for the week, as I said, I went away with some friends over the weekend, but something I don't have a suck, so I'm skipping past the suck because I
Okay.
think it is like, apart from Marley getting kind of like, picked on, there was no suck. But my sweet for the week is I had a really beautiful experience where we were at the pool and Marley, she is so social and she was talking to this lady and she'd been talking to this lady for ages. The woman was watching, her name was Amanda, and she was watching Taylor Swift live over in the States and Marley was obsessed with it. So she kept going over wanting to watch it. I was very conscious around imposing like on her time and also like Marley spending too much time over there and that being annoying when
With
they're
a
trying to have a
stranger.
holiday. Yeah. Well, not even that, just they're trying to have a holiday nicely themselves and like my kid is annoying their parents' solo time. I went over and I apologized and this woman said, look, it's absolutely fine. And she was like, I want to share something with you. She said, it's really special to get to spend time with a little girl who's so interested in talking to me. And she shared with me that she had lost her 6-year-old daughter, Ava. It was 2 years since Ava had passed away. And I had this moment on the weekend, which was like quite profound because I always say to Marley, or I don't say to Marley directly, but I always say to Matt, we're always like, our kids are so lucky. They have no idea how lucky they are. That in that moment, I had this real realization that I was like, we don't realize how lucky we are. It was really beautiful to get to know this lady, and I had a really nice conversation with her. And I felt very special that she shared with me some of the stories around what happened 2 years ago to her and to her family. And yeah, it was just a really nice moment. And it really was something, not that you need someone else's grief to make you appreciate the things that you have in life, but it really was a moment where I stopped focusing on how lucky our kids are and genuinely how lucky I feel to have healthy kids who are able to run around and you know, be out there in the world.
Yeah, but sometimes that's the reminder you need. And as horrible as that sounds, perspective is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And we can get very lost and stuck in the negativity. And sometimes it's nice to be like reminded, oh, yeah, I don't have anything to worry about.
Well, that's it. And that's also why I'm like, there's no suck this week. But shout out to Amanda. She's also a listener. And yeah, I
Aw.
felt very special to meet her. So that is it from us, guys. Thanks so much for listening to another episode. If you love the ep, go leave a review. You know, come and join us over at Life Uncut discussion group on Facebook. And you know the drill.
Tell your mum, tell your dad, tell your dog, tell your friends, and share the love because
We love